What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another episode of WWE's Biggest Issue. This week's episode, this one's going to be interesting because the news had broke this past Friday, this past weekend, that WWE is going back on tour in July. So it's interesting because, because I had talked about this multiple times on the channel over the last month or so as to when WWE will be going back on tour. There were rumors saying that it was going to happen next month in June, but now we know it'll be in July, and we found out that it's going to take place in the state of Texas. I believe SmackDown is going to be in Houston. Money in the Bank will be in Fort Worth, and then Monday Night Raw will be in Dallas. So it's gonna be interesting, but WWE actually switched up the pay-per-views completely. So normally, especially when it comes to after WrestleMania, normally it would be like when you look at last year's pay-per-view lineup. Let's actually go back. So normally it would be WrestleMania, then potentially Money in the Bank or Backlash, or it could be the other way around, and then Extreme Rules in July, and then of course SummerSlam usually always in August. But that was not the case because that's not the case because now obviously with Hell in a Cell being in June next month and Money in the Bank being in July, this year's Hell in a Cell will be the last pay-per-view inside the WWE ThunderDome. So one has to wonder, how cringe is it going to be in front of fans? It is going to be super cringy because if you think about it, the last pay-per-view the last show that we had that had paying fans, it was all the way back on Raw. It was the Raw after the Elimination Chamber last year in 2020, and then after that, the pandemic struck. The pandemic had struck, and we suffered through a whole lot. And I mean, don't get me wrong, since the pandemic hit, the matchups have been pretty decent, actually, I must admit. I know that we had that tournament to crown a new Intercontinental Champion when Sami Zayn refused to defend the title on SmackDown. We had Edge versus Randy Orton in that Last Man Standing match. We had Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens in that no DQ match. We had Undertaker versus AJ Styles, which that ended up being the Undertaker's last match ever in WWE. Don't know if he will come back to the ring, but only time will tell. I mean, he said that he was done, but we all know what's good. We had Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre, Goldberg versus Braun Strowman for the Universal title. Originally supposed to have been Roman Reigns, but that wasn't the case. If you look at when you look at NXT Takeover in Your House, this was one of the first few shows that had some fans, and by that I mean trainees from the Performance Center show up. The card for Takeover in Your House was absolutely stacked. You had Adam Cole versus versus the Velveteen Dream for the NXT Championship, which unfortunately Velveteen Dream did get released from his contract in WWE. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows why. Kind of an odd one. Kind of an odd one. But then of course we had Backlash. We had Edge versus Randy Orton in literally the greatest wrestling match of all time. NXT Takeover 30, which was absolutely stacked. I mean, getting to see Adam Cole versus SmackDown now SmackDown commentator Pat McAfee, it's incredible. It's absolutely insane. But when you look at WrestleMania this past April, last month, you have to think it's only been a month since we had paying fans show up to our to the WWE shows, and the card for WrestleMania was literally stacked. This would have to have been the first time that I did not think, honestly, I believe, hang on, let's look back. Because I know that WrestleMania 32 in Dallas had 11 matches. WrestleMania 33 in Orlando had 13 matches. I know that WrestleMania in New Orleans had 14. So this was and then WrestleMania 35 had literally had well over almost 20 matches on the card. Literally 16 matches on the card. Literally 16 matches on the card. Last year's WrestleMania, we had, I believe, close to 20. Yeah, we literally had 18 matches on the card. This past year's WrestleMania, we only had 14 matches on the card, and the card was stupid stacked. All the titles, literally almost all, I believe all the titles were defended. Yeah, I believe all the titles were defended at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns defended his Universal title against Edge and Daniel Bryan. Sasha Banks defended the SmackDown Women's title against Bianca Belair. Bobby Lashley defended his WWE title against Drew McIntyre. The New Day defended the Raw tag titles against AJ Styles. Literally almost all the titles. The only titles that were not defended, I think, were the SmackDown tag titles, if I remember correctly. Asuka defended her Raw Women's title against Rhea Ripley. We had, Big E versus Apollo Crews in that Nigerian drum fight for the IC title. Riddle versus Sheamus for the US title, and then of course the women's tag titles were defended. The card was pretty stacked. I have to admit, this card was pretty stacked. But now, obviously now we're getting into, with TakeOver in Your House coming up and with Hell in a Cell coming up, one has to wonder how cringe is it going to be to find out that these will be the last two pay-per-views before we have paying fans. Let's not forget that there have been reports saying that this year's SummerSlam is supposed to take place at the Allegiant Stadium, from what I probably butchered it, in downtown Las Vegas. So I don't know. That's kind of an odd one. I don't know if those rumors are true, but if they are true, this will probably be the biggest SummerSlam of all time since Wembley Stadium in 1992, if I remember correctly. I need to look back on something. Hang on. Yeah, I actually still have my old SummerSlam program. Yes, I still have it. I was there that night in 2009. But I believe it was 1992. Was it 92? Yes, it was 1992. I was correct. I had to be sure. On it. And yes, it was back in 1992, Wembley Stadium in the UK. This will be the biggest one since then. Not sure how it'll go. Not sure how that'll work, given the fact that the Allegiant Stadium, I believe, can have up to 70,000 fans. Let me see. I believe so. Um, let's see. Actually, yeah. So it can have up to 65,000 fans apparently. Um, and it's interesting because it had just opened up last year in July. So this will actually be one of the largest venues um, ever in history, if I remember right. Um, but if if they do hold it inside this venue, it'll probably have well over 72,000 fans, counting the front row seats best at best. So again, if they host it inside, if they do host it inside the Allegiant Stadium, it'll probably go to that. However, there have also been other reports saying that it's going to take place inside SoFi Stadium here in California, and if that's the case, we're going to have well over 100,000 fans, which is absolutely insane. But again, this is the last pay-per-view before WWE goes back on tour, which is Hell in a Cell. There are no matches on the card as of yet, and we're only just a few weeks away. We're like literally less than a month away from this pay-per-view. We're also less than a month away from TakeOver in Your House as well. So one has to wonder, what matches are we going to see? It's hard. It's hard to say, but again, going back with the whole fans, being cringe part, it's gonna be super cringy because throughout most of 2020, we've been used to having no fans at all. We've been used to having a couple NXT superstars and trainees from the Performance Center show up to the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT events as well. Not only that, but from August of last year up until now, we've been so used to the sight of the ThunderDome, which, I mean, it's gonna feel so weird to. It's gonna be so weird for superstars, management, and all that to see paying fans show up to the show. So one has to wonder, what's gonna be how big will the atmosphere be once we do go into Money in the Bank weekend next month in July. And honestly, it's gonna be interesting because now that everybody is starting to get their shots, myself included. Again, don't want to get copyrighted. You know how this works. One has to wonder how this is gonna play out. My assumption is, again, going back with SummerSlam being in Vegas, if they host it in Vegas, odds are they're going to have at least 12 matches on the card at best. With Hell in a Cell coming up, I think the one thing we can expect, I would probably have to say, well, given the fact that Cesaro is still in a tangle with Roman Reigns and also with Seth Rollins as well, but Roman Reigns is also in a tangle with his own cousin Jimmy Uso, one has to wonder, maybe those four can compete inside Hell in a Cell with the Universal Championship on the line, which actually puts Roman in a very difficult spot, given the fact that with Jey Uso in his corner, one has to wonder, can is Jey Uso going to be enough for Roman Reigns to beat Cesaro, Seth Rollins, and Jimmy Uso? It's hard to say. It's hard to say, but again, it's going to be so cringe to hear the roar of the crowd. It is going to be super cringy. I would say for the first about 3 months, I would say about the first 3 months, it's going to be really cringy to see and hear the roar of the crowd, the electricity that they bring to WWE, you know, to the shows. It's going to be super cringy, especially NXT. NXT is going to have an even bigger crowd than we had ever expected. But as far as where that takeover for SummerSlam weekend will take place, I don't know. That's kind of hard to say. There again, since SummerSlam is going to take place in Vegas, assumingly, we assume it'll be at one of the smaller venues in Vegas. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. But yeah, again, it's gonna be super cringe to have fans there. But guys, that is going to do it for this episode of WWE's Biggest Issue. Question of the day. Question of the day: what match do you want to see take place inside Hell in a Cell at Hell in a Cell? Let me know in the comments below. And that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more episodes of WWE's Biggest Issue, which gets posted every Monday, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to check me out on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description. If you guys have fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.